If you are running around saying that the federal government is only giving the victims of the hurricane and the various storms and flooding in the southeast $750 and then walking away from them because they gave billions of dollars of FEMA funding to undocumented immigrants, you need to seek sterilization right now so that you don't contaminate our gene pool any further than you already have. Let's get into this. This is going to be a little bit of a lengthy video, but it's one that we need to have, a conversation that we need to have. Donald Trump at a rally pushed bullshit debunked lies about the federal response to Hurricane Helene. And then overnight, he pushed those same lies on Truth Social. He posted a quote from Jesse Waters of Fox News. Over 200 Americans are unalived after Hurricane Helene, and the thousands of victims impacted have been disgracefully left behind. Untrue. The Biden administration has blocked ongoing rescue operations. Untrue. And North Carolina is living in the dark ages because Joe Biden and Kamala Harris hate Elon Musk. Insanity. FEMA is now out of money because Joe Biden and Kamala spent over $1 billion of FEMA cash on migrants. Not true. Illegals got luxury hotel rooms, but Kamala's just tossing Helene victims $750 and heading back on the campaign trail. Not true. This must not meet her standard for giving extra resources. She only wants to do that based on equity. Translation, if they were black, she'd give them money. All of this is a bullshit lie. So let's talk about what happens when a natural disaster occurs. A hurricane, a flood, a wildfire, an earthquake, a tornado, an avalanche, you name it. A few things have to happen. Not in any particular order, this is what has to happen. The federal government, namely the President of the United States, has to declare the area or state a disaster, which then frees up immediately federal funding for anybody impacted by the storm to register, to submit their forms to request federal funding in the wake of the natural disaster. That's already happened. Joe Biden has already declared North Carolina, South Carolina, Alabama, Florida, all those states have been declared a disaster, so all of those people can already submit for their funding. FEMA comes in and assesses damage, assists with relocating people, and gives everybody a one-time payment of $750, no matter where it is, no matter what the occurrence is, because that's what they're allowed to do. That is for food and a hotel room tonight. That's what that is for. National Guard, if needed, needs to be activated to help with search and rescue efforts, but that's up to the state governors. So if you have any issue with National Guard deployment, you need to speak with each state's governor. The federal government will also send individuals down to help with the search and recovery efforts. That's why 3,500 people were already on the ground before the storm hit. The president already did all of that. If you're complaining about the lights being back on, keep in mind that's not the federal government, that's private industry. Private power companies have to put those lines back up. That's why those private companies sent 21,000 linemen down to the Gulf area to stand by ahead of the storm. If you want the federal government to be in charge of putting the lights back on, getting the lines back up, we can have that conversation, but that would require the federal government taking over the power industries and running it as a part of the government, which I am in favor of, but it's something I don't think that most people who are complaining about the response are really in favor of themselves. So all of that needs to happen, and all of that has been done and is being done. Now comes the big money, right? Is there going to be a relief package that's passed for the hurricane victims? Well, that's up to Congress. More specifically, it's up to the House of Representatives. To give you a kind of a 30,000 foot overview of Congress, quite simply, you could say it like this. Congress is made up into two chambers. The upper chamber, which is known as the Senate, and the lower chamber, which is known as the House of Representatives. Each chamber does many things, but to kind of broadly put what their most important responsibility is, the Senate confirms judges, the House is the one that spends the money. All of the spending is controlled by the House. You don't get any dollars appropriated for anything. A post office, a road, a bridge, military funding, hurricane relief funding, all of it comes from the House of Representatives. They control the purse strings. The House of Representatives is currently controlled by Republicans, not Democrats. They're the ones that have to pass a relief bill, if they want to pass a relief bill. That's the next part. Now, let's go back and look at some things. Trump and GOP make BS migrant claim amid FEMA hurricane shortfall. Homeland Security Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas told reporters Wednesday that the Federal Emergency Management Agency does not have enough funding to make it through the hurricane season, and Republicans, both in Congress and out, are not taking it well. Seething lawmakers and right-wing commentators latched on to the Department of Homeland Security's decision last year to award $640 million in FEMA-administered funds to assist state and local governments in dealing with a recent influx of migrants and asylum seekers, blaming the relatively small allocation for the shortfall. The claims, however, are not true. The $640 million earmarked for migrant humanitarian services during the 2024 fiscal year was approved by Congress for FEMA's shelter and services programs, a wholly separate and unrelated initiative to the agency's disaster relief program. Quote, Kamala spent all of her FEMA money, billions of dollars, on housing for illegal immigrants, former President Donald Trump told a rally crowd in Saginaw, Michigan. They stole the FEMA money just like they stole it from a bank so they could give it to their illegal immigrants who they want to have vote for them, he added. Undocumented immigrants cannot vote in U.S. elections, and attempts to do so are incredibly rare, just so that you're aware. Mayorkas and FEMA immediately stopped spending on illegal immigration resettlement and redirect those funds to areas hit by the hurricane, Texas Governor Greg Abbott tweeted. Put America first. These claims have no basis in reality, according to officials. The Shelter and Services Program, SSP, is a completely separate appropriated grant program that was authorized and funded by Congress and is not associated in any way with FEMA's disaster-related hurricane authorities or funding streams, a Homeland Security spokesperson told Newsweek, calling the Republican claims completely false. The funds allocated to handle asylum seekers also constitute approximately 2% of FEMA's annual budget, which is typically measured in the billions. Its 2023 total gross budget authority was just under $30 billion for the financial year, which began October 1st. The agency requested $33.1 billion, according to Newsweek. What's more, it has been Republicans who have repeatedly voted in Congress to cut FEMA funding, and the Republican-led House currently controls FEMA's spending and budget. Just last week, the Hill's most conservative fiscal hawks forced congressional leaders to strip a bipartisan continuing resolution to keep the government open of almost all supplemental funding, including disaster funds for FEMA, according to Politico's E&E News. One of those hawks was Representative Matt Gaetz from Florida, who voted against the resolution just days before the hurricane hit his state on Thursday night. The storm has since wreaked havoc across the southeast and claimed more than 160 lives, with the death toll expected to rise. I would have thought if you were going to do something, disaster funding would have been one of the starting points, Representative Mark Amati of Nevada, chair of the Homeland Security Appropriations Subcommittee, told the outlet, saying he has been caught unawares by the modification. I have no idea how they got that. The continuing resolution did contain an additional $20 billion earmarked for the agency, and the bill allows FEMA to draw on the funds more quickly as needed, according to the Associated Press. But Mayorkas said that while the agency had enough to meet its immediate needs, its ability to fund itself in the future is in doubt. Hurricane season runs to the end of November. Disaster recovery from Helene alone could cost the government up to $34 billion. One might ask themselves, if the Republicans are so bent out of shape about getting money into the hands of people that were impacted by this storm, why don't they just pass a bill since they control the House? Well, the problem is that they're on vacation for 30 days, and the Speaker, Representative Mike Johnson from Louisiana, doesn't think that he should call them back for a vote before their vacation is over. Speaker Johnson says more disaster aid necessary after Helene. Republican House Speaker Mike Johnson said existing disaster funds won't be enough to cover the needs of victims of Hurricane Helene and predicted Congress will need to pass additional aid. But Johnson rejected calls from some lawmakers from hurricane-ravaged states for Congress to return early from a break running through the November 5th election. Johnson said Wednesday that officials would need 30 days or more to finish assessing the damage from the storm before Congress acts. Florida Democratic Representative Moskowitz and Florida Republican MAGA Representative Luna have both agreed to put forth a bill that would get $10 billion into the hands of hurricane victims, and said they're willing to return to Congress, to Washington, D.C., before their vacation is up to vote on it. But the Republican speaker says, no, we need another 30 days. So Biden's doing everything he can, and the Republicans are voting against funding and holding up a vote for another 30 days. Get your fucking facts straight.